People don't care what you know until they know how much you care. My name is Adrienne Grace. I am a mindset and high performance coach. And today I want to talk a little bit about my origin story because I believe that all the information in the world isn't going to help people until they understand why you care about this stuff and why it's important to you and what life experiences have you gone through that help you then help people. And so that's what I want to share about today. So maybe you've been here for a little while, maybe you're just finding my channel now, but a little bit about me is that I spent 16 years in the finance industry. I was a high-performing VP of sales. I actually sold mutual funds to financial advisors. I worked for an asset manager out of New York City. And I covered a certain territory made up of several states in the mountain states. Colorado is where I was based, and surrounding states, they always were changing my territory around. And I did that for quite a long time. And most of my career was at this one particular firm that moved me out to Colorado. And I had worked and worked and worked to get that promotion. And at the height of my career, I was making about a $500,000 a year. And I had this beautiful condo in downtown Denver. And I could buy anything I want. I could take myself on any vacation I wanted. I bought myself really beautiful clothes. I live by myself. So I drove a really nice car. Except I was so tired and burned out and stressed out and lived with so much anxiety and drank a ton and was just a shell of myself, I like to call it. I also want to rewind to 5 years of my life that I spent studying for an exam called the CFA. It stands for Chartered Financial Analyst, and it is the highest distinction in the investment management industry that you can receive. And I worked my butt off to get there. And something that I'm really just side note about me is that from a young age, um, in my early 20s, I had saw the movie The Secret, and something in it really resonated with me. Like, oh wow, like our thoughts become things. Like, yeah, there was just something about it that felt really true to me. And so I had built a vision board and I had set really big, lofty goals for myself. I was always very ambitious. I wanted to make $100,000 by the time I was 25. I wanted to own my first condo by the time I was 25, which I did. I bought a condo in New Jersey. That's where I was living at the time in Hoboken. It was right across the river from New York City, where I was working for most of my career. And yeah, and so then I used the principles in The Secret to manifest things in my life. I was so excited about this concept. So I would make vision boards, I would cut places out, cut things out, and I would create bank statements that had net worth amounts and income amounts and all of these things, and I would paste them all together. And I was able to use those principles to really climb up the ranks of corporate America and to attain that designation and to get this job in the finance industry where I was making great money, what most people would consider great money. And I had everything that I thought that I wanted. But again, I was a shell of myself. And so in December of 2019, I decided to go down to Costa Rica to go to an ayahuasca retreat. Now, kind of rewind back a little bit. I think it was 2018, I read the book How to Change Your Mind by Michael Pollan. And I had known who Michael Pollan was. I was interested in his work. I was always interested in food and fitness and health stuff. So I had read some of his other books before. And so when he put that book out, I was really intrigued and I read it and I was hooked. And I felt like, oh my gosh, I want to do psychedelics. And I had never done psychedelics before. Actually, I shouldn't say never. I did mushrooms one time in college. It was like a very little amount and it was not the best experience. It wasn't bad. I was at my friend's apartment. It was during a snow day, but it was, yeah, anyway, that's another story. So that year in 2019, I went through a really bad breakup where I was dating somebody for about 3 years and I definitely was very in love with him. And we broke up and I was devastated. Now, by that point, I actually had already been divorced and I Yeah, I was more devastated about that breakup than I even was about my divorce. Not to say that there's like rankings or things like that, but I don't know. There was just something about that breakup that really rocked me to my core. And then in kind of a more vulnerable state, I got involved with somebody that did not end well. It ended actually completely disastrously and kind of blew up in my face. And I was like, I need to figure out why I am the way I am. Like, what is it about me that just is never good with relationships? And so I wanted to go down to Costa Rica to do an ayahuasca retreat for my own personal reasons. Like, I was curious, like, it had nothing to do with my job. I actually thought, like, oh, the job is the job I've always wanted. This is what the life that I wanted. I need to figure out my personal life. So I went down and did the retreat, and my mind was blown open. And in part of that retreat, in one of the ceremonies one night, I saw myself on a stage speaking to people in finance about not financial stuff. It was kind of like I knew intuitively that I was speaking to them about about mindset and about creation and about how our mind creates our reality and things like that. And I was like, oh, that's really interesting. And then I came back from that, and this was December, and so it was the holidays, and I would fly back home to the East Coast to New Jersey to see my family. And then when January 1st starts in my business, in that business, it would just be so busy. And so like I was traveling basically every single week up until the pandemic. And so I just didn't even have a chance to process or integrate anything that I had just learned from that ayahuasca retreat. So when the pandemic came and we went into lockdown, it was actually the biggest gift for me because then I was able to really go inward and be like, okay, what happened here? Like, let me process a lot of this stuff. And I did have a lot of things to process. There were things that came up about my childhood that I didn't consciously remember, and just a lot of stuff to work through. So I worked with a therapist. I worked with several coaches that year, and did a lot of integration work around this. Now, I also at the time was feeling like, oh my gosh, like I couldn't get motivated anymore for my job. It was just becoming so hard to actually do my job. And there was a lot of things that were happening at my firm in particular, and just also within the industry in general, that were just starting to not sit right with my integrity. And I couldn't unsee things anymore. I was just like, I don't like this. There's something weird here. This is not good. I don't like this. And I'll just give you one quick example. I actually got COVID in March of 2020, and it was an extremely scary experience since if you can remember what was going on at the time, I mean, like people were dying. They were saying like if you get this, it was like you had to go to the hospital. It was the worst thing in the world. And so I was pretty panicked. And I couldn't even go get a test because they were like only testing healthcare professionals at the time. But I remember calling my mom up and telling her like, yeah, like I'm really like I feel like I kind of felt like I had the flu. But I was like, I can't smell or taste anything, but like my nose isn't that stuffy. And then like the next day on the news, it was all over that that was like a major sign of COVID. And so my mom called me up. She's like, oh my God, that's one of the main signs. Like you definitely have it. And anyway, so it was just a little alarming. Well, my manager and the bosses that were at my firm were not sympathetic at all. And they were just like asking me about my activity and when I was going to be okay, like when I was going to be able to get my activity numbers up, and if I was going to be able to make sales calls and all these things. Like nobody cared about my health at all. So anyway, that was just the type of environment that I worked in. I get it, everyone, there's just so much pressure. Um, but there was just a lot of little things too that were happening within the firm. And I was the only female on a team of all men, which is hard in and of itself. And yeah, just things that were not sitting right with my integrity. And so after doing a lot of soul searching that year, I decided I want to leave. Now, I'd always been interested in law of attraction from The Secret, right? And then also since then, like meditation and Buddhism and how our mind creates our reality and all these other principles that they were just really passionate. I was really passionate about it. And I used to say to myself, I used to be like, I wish there was a job where I could just like meditate and read all day. Um, and yeah, I just was like so tired and I was so happy to actually like be home in my own bed every night, like enjoying my beautiful condo that I had just bought in 2019. And I was really never home to enjoy it. And I was always out entertaining clients. I would had to take people out almost every single night. So I was drinking all the time because of that. I took Adderall as well. I was on Adderall for years and years. And it was something that like I hid from a lot of people because I just like I used it for performance. And yeah, anyway, I just had a lot of shame around it. So just a lot of really unhealthy bad habits. And I felt like I needed it to motivate me and to do the work. But in 2020, I basically like, couldn't even do my work anymore. It was just becoming so out of alignment with who I really was. So I made the really difficult decision to leave and start my own business. And it was so synchronistic that I actually had done a meditation from Vishen Lakhiani. If you know who he is, he's the CEO of Mind Valley. And I had done one of his meditations, and it was like about, okay, here's a problem in your life, and we're going to try to find a solution. It was like this whole process, and that you then we're just going to be open to receive like some sort of solution. And so the problem that I said was like my job, like, and what am I going to do? And I was in, I asked the universe for an answer. Well, that week I had two people, actually, both the coaches that I was working with at the time, both mentioned to me Bob Proctor and that you can work for Bob Proctor. Now, if you don't know who Bob Proctor is, he was in the movie The Secret. And so I knew who he was. I loved him. I had no idea he had a company, and I had no idea that you can like work for him and be a consultant for Bob Proctor. And so then I looked into it and I saw that he had developed a coaching program and a methodology and that you can get certified in it and then you can coach people his methodology. And I was like, oh my God, this is my answer. Because I started coming to the conclusion that, I did want to leave my job, but what would I do? And I thought about starting my own business, and I thought about coaching, but I was like, I don't know how to coach people. I have no idea. Like, I don't even know how to develop a program. And so I felt like this was the answer that I was looking for. So I decided to leave and get certified through Proctor Gallagher. That was Bob Proctor's company at the time, and his methodology. So I started doing that and then um, getting my certification and was still working in my finance job. And it was just kind of like on the DL. And then I left after I got my bonus in February of 2021. It was on my birthday. I think it was my 38th birthday. And this was 5 years ago, almost exactly. It was February of 2021. Gave my notice. They wanted me to stay on till the end of the month. Typically, when the salespeople left, they made them leave that day because they had all of access to their proprietary information, their client list. But because I wasn't going to a competitor, they were like, we want you to stay on to the end of the month and help you like transition clients. So I was like, okay, fine. So I stayed on to the end of the month and then I took the month of March off, but really I was doing a lot of things behind the scenes, getting ready to roll out my business. I had to have ankle surgery and then I launched my business April 1st. Now I really truly felt that like if I live by these principles that I'm coaching on and Bob Proctor's methodology, like I'm going to be successful. I'm going to replicate my salary. Bob Proctor's whole thing is make your annual salary your monthly salary. So I was like, all right, my annual salary was $500,000. I was like, can I make that my monthly salary? That seems like outrageous and crazy. And can I even want that? Can I even ask for that? Um, but I was like, all right, let's make it $100,000 a month. And I just figured like, okay, no problem. I will do this lickety split. It'll be great and perfect. That's not exactly what happened. It's been a very challenging 5 years. I joke around that if I knew then what I know now, that I probably wouldn't have left to be an entrepreneur so quickly, but ignorance is bliss. And I think that having some of that naivety is actually good for entrepreneurship. But it's been a wild ride and an amazing ride. And I coached on Bob's program for the first couple of years, but what ended up happening was I went really deep in my own personal process. I started studying with other teachers like Dr. Joe Dispenza, and I started studying with like Allison Armstrong. And I'm just trying to think of some of that. Like I've had so many teachers and coaches throughout the years, I almost can't even like think of them. Sarah Landon, she's another one. Um, And so I had this whole process that I went through, and I was using certain tools with clients and in my own life, and I kind of discovered like really what works, what doesn't work. And something I learned about manifestation is that we often think that we want something, right? And this happened to me in my finance career, like, oh, I really want this. I want the money, I want the house, I want the car, I want the partner, right? I want these things. And then when I get them, I'll be okay. And that it wasn't what happened, right? I had the money, I had the lifestyle, and I was burned out, and I it wasn't what I thought it would be. And so that was when I learned about like, okay, we can manifest, but actually like we might not know, right? We might not know what's best for us. Where are we manifesting from? We're manifesting from this place of lack and limitation, and I'll be happy when, and oh, like I need this to be this external thing to be happy. And so I really started doing a lot of inner work and being like, okay, like how can we just live in the present moment, live in this place of bliss and live in this place where we're so satiated and filled up and yeah, we're working towards a dream, we're working towards something that like really fills us up and that excites us and inspires us, but we're not attached to it. And we realize that the universe even knows way better than what our little mind can conceive. And so we just like open it up to possibilities. So the last 5 years has been really hard. It has not been as easy as I thought it would be. And that's okay because I really believe that anything worth having takes some time, right? There's effort, there's this seed that needs to be planted, that needs to be cultivated, that needs to be grown, that you need to be shaped into who you're meant to be so that you can serve at the highest level. And, at this place in my career, I mean, last year I did have the best year in business that I've had yet. And that's all we need every year, right? Is the best year and then the best year and then the best year. But there have been a lot of challenges and a lot of unforeseen challenges. If you've been following me for any time, I've been talking about that I've been going through one of the most difficult challenges that I've ever faced in my life over this last year. And I have to trust that even that too is for me and it's shaping me into who I'm meant to be. And it's helping me learn certain things, get rid of attachments that I have, understand the importance of like what really is important in life. And so that I can show up in my fullest expression and really serve the world with my gifts in the best possible way, because that's what we're here to do. So I hope you enjoyed my story. And if you want to learn more, if you want to just stick around, you can follow me on LinkedIn or Instagram. LinkedIn, I post almost every day. Instagram, I post somewhat regularly. And you can follow along on my journey. So, and don't forget to hit subscribe here and like if you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching.